Hey, hope you're enjoying your Tuesday or whatever day it is that you're tuning in to listen to the Five Tool Baseball podcast. We really appreciate it. This is episode 27. I'm again joined by Drew Bishop. And Drew and everybody out there listening, I hope your week or the last 7 days have gone better for you than they have for me and the McComas household. We've heard horror stories of the first stomach bug with the little one and what it does to the house. And it's just one of those things that friends you have that have kids that are older that have gone through it, they just kind of have that like nervous laugh, like, oh yeah, you're gonna get it. Everybody's gonna get it. And didn't really know what they meant by that until these last 7 days. So fortunately, I got through it. It took longer with Jack, understandably. He's 20 months old. His immune system is just learning these types of things, but he was able to finally go back to get daycare today. And then it hit my wife yesterday or late the night before. What was that? Sunday night, super late, and then took her all of Monday. She's still recovering. So it's been a week. It's been a week. And as you know, when one person is sick, or in this case, multiple ones, like it just like you can't accomplish really anything. So been working some till later on when Jack went to sleep. Unfortunately, he slept all through the night and things like that. But I hope you guys won't experience anything like this in the future.
Yeah, well, we've had our share of that as well, and I feel for you. And that nervous laughter, I can completely feel what they're talking about, because it does. It just wipes you out. And I think Liz and Mary are probably better equipped to handle stuff like that going on than us having to deal with one or both of them being sick.
Yeah,
I know that's the case in my house, at least.
Yeah,
but yeah, it things that you would normally do get thrown out the window, and kind of, I feel sorry for our animals. They get neglected a little bit more when little guy's down for the count, especially if dad's in charge.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely dad running the house the last couple of days. And the good thing about having a son that age is you start to like watch movies that you never watched before. Like I'd never seen Coco, and I'm like, oh my God, I see why it's like this critically acclaimed, highly rated, like this is awesome. And then the negative side is that I've now probably watched that like 17 times, or at least certain parts of it over the last week, because he just likes it so much, like Coco, like put on Coco. So that's a downside there, but there could be worse things. But on the positive, on the upswing, finally getting out of this thing, which is good, because we have a wedding this weekend, and you had a wedding of one of our favorite bullpen catchers ever. How did that one go on Saturday?
It was good. Good to see all those guys. Like I said, that was a bullpen catcher reunion. Those guys are all doing well. Got to see Patrick Marsh, Hunter Wilcox, Grant Martin, and then obviously James was there for his own wedding. So
I hope so.
Thankfully.
Yeah, good.
But it was good. It was good. It was they had it at ACC, Austin Country Club, home of Dell Match Play. The place was great. Food was awesome. So I was happy. And
there you go.
We came back that night. So got to be there for Chloe to wake up in the morning. So it was all good.
That's good. That's good. And yeah. I'm sure many people are
out there. Yeah. Mom survived. My mom survived.
yeah. It's always one of, you hope that any sort of text or phone call isn't mom calling, sending an SOS out. It's like, well, we're 4 hours away. Sorry, I can't really help you. But I'm sure many of you out there listening are like, okay, let's get to the list. And yeah, we will get to the list. We're going to release today the first 11 members of the 2023 5 Tool 55, the inaugural list for players in the state of Texas. We'll talk about those 11 on here. Kind of at that same time, I'm going to actually publish the written evaluations and commentary associated with those 11 players at 5tool.org. We'll tweet all those things out. You'll see them on Facebook, I'm sure, and all that sort of stuff. But before we get into that process of releasing those names, just kind of wanted to look back and some general thoughts. This is a deep class. And I guess that's not too surprising when you're going from when we started with the senior list, which was after their last summer, basically, you kind of have a much better idea. You can shoot smaller, you don't have to cast a wide net of so many players, because generally the guys are a little bit more known at that stage of their career than they are with these guys. This was a much wider net. I think I ended up looking at almost 400 players, filing notes on probably about 350 guys. And the beauty and also the frustrating element of that is that we're going to miss someone, just because that's the state of Texas. That's the way it is. There are going to be guys that have yet to play a varsity inning in the state of Texas that end up being really big time players by the time their career is over. That's just the way it is. And that's one of the exciting things about doing a list of guys that are in their junior year is a lot of these guys still haven't fully matured physically. They still haven't turned into the types of players they're going to be at the end of their high school career, the types of bodies they're going to be, the type of athletes they're going to be. And that might be down the road in collegiate baseball as well at the professional level. So it's doing this. It was kind of striking at I can see there's a lot more still to come from the projection side and what these guys could become, as opposed to those seniors when you're really bearing down on those guys after their final summer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot more, at least if we're doing our job, there's going to be a lot more turnover from this list versus the 2022 list. But, another thing that stuck out, just like the 22 list, there is a lot of good baseball in this state. I mean, we've got guys down towards the, quote unquote, bottom of the 55 list that are committed to SEC schools. Good ones. And so it's just reiterates how much talent is out there. You're starting to see a lot of programs that have a bunch of kids on the 22 and 23 list. So it's going to be fun to get out and watch those guys play this spring. And then this one clearly has a lot more uncommitted guys out of our 55, which is exciting, because we'll get to see what kind of interest picks up for them, or, if they're going up a tier in levels of interest from schools, and see where they end up. So that'll be fun, and get to watch some of these guys and see how they grow and mature, and see how much movement there is. But, like we talked about with the last group, it's just a starting point. It's a conversation piece to, from what we've seen from these guys so far and what's available. That's something that we run into a lot. And there's so many kids, like you said, seeing over 400 kids, we may be seeing a bullpen on the internet that wasn't their best day, or it may have been the end of the summer too. So there's a lot of fluidity in this list. But, just looking at it, you've got some big time names across the board. You got some guys on the just missed list that will for sure be in the top 55 at some point, more than likely. So be excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, one of the things I'm most excited about putting together is, when we publish the 55, we'll do it like we do with the 22 class. There'll be a list of guys that just missed, and those guys are really good. I really agonized over those last probably 5 or 6 spots. I feel like those spots changed a lot because there are a lot of guys that could fit that mold. And the good thing about cutting it to 55 is the whole exclusivity angle of it. The bad thing is you're going to cut good players from that list. So that group of just missed guys, I'm really excited about. Even with some of the follow guys too. We're going to release a just missed list, and also a follow list as well, like we did with the 22 list. Both those lists will be bigger in numbers than the 22 list was, because these are juniors. I mean, there's still a lot of career left for these guys, but I'm really excited about, plucking some guys from those lists and saying, hey, I think this guy is capable of making a big jump, because there are a ton of those guys. And we see it, especially with the pitchers, that some of these pitchers that play for really, really good high school programs simply haven't been able to throw a ton, because there are a lot of really good pitchers on that roster that are older than they are. So they're kind of waiting their turn at those respective programs to emerge as a guy. And that's one of the beauties of summer ball, is those guys get an opportunity that maybe they're not throwing a ton of innings for their high school team because their high school team's so good. They get a chance to go out in the summer and perform. But a lot of guys, I thought a lot of two-way players, legitimate two-way players, we'll see where their careers go. It's always fun to watch the guys that are talented on the mound, in-ass position guys, what happens with them in the future. But a lot of arms worth betting on, a lot of athletes. That's one thing I think I found myself doing a little bit more, putting together this list, is trusting the tools with some of these guys. Like, if you're seeing some in-game power already, that's legitimate. I mean, That's good. I mean, there's not many of those guys in any state of Texas class every single year when they get to the seniors and things like that. Like, if a guy can really, really run and he's running into the ball occasionally and driving out of the yard, like, you got to trust that, like, and bet on that sort of thing, even including if he's an athlete as well. So you'll see, we'll get into some guys today even talking about that kind of fit that mold. But I'm really excited about kind of going through and identifying some of those guys like, hey, this guy didn't make the 55. But man, if you tell me that in a year he's a top 25 player in the state of Texas, I can just nod my head and say, yeah, I can see it with where he is right now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's get to the list.
Yeah, let's get to it. And you mentioned it with the SEC brand starting off at number 55 on the list is Tyne Hampshire from Lumberton. He plays for Gladiators baseball. I believe his dad coaches in that program. A two-way guy. I think that he probably profiles best in the future as a third baseman. But right now he's kind of more of the middle infield mold, the high school level, right-handed pitcher, swings the bat from the left-handed side. Probably about 6'2", maybe 6'3", kind of a lean body. He's got some projection there. It's a smooth swing. It's got some promise with the bat in his hands. An area code guy, a good get for Arkansas, and a guy that you watch how his barrel gets through the zone and how long it stays in the zone. I think he's got a chance to be one of the better left-handed hitters in the state of Texas.
Yeah, definitely. He's got a history of success. Like you said, a dad that's a coach. And I don't know why, but I kept watching his video and thinking, got a little bit of Cody Bellinger vibes, just kind of the stance and the way that his actions are. But definitely a winning player, plays for a good program with Gladiators baseball. Lumberton's had some really good teams in the past. So yeah, excited to see him. I think, like you said, probably ends up on as a corner infielder.
Yeah.
May have a chance on the mound, depending upon what his body does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think he's got a chance to have a plus arm in the infield because of what we've seen on the mound already. And perhaps that's where that ends up being his calling, because it's pretty easy on the mound right now. But if it's not, I could see that arm profile pretty well at the hot corner. And a fun part about this too is I thought we had a pretty good amount of data on guys from our events. And Easton Winfield is a guy that was a big time performer. He comes in at number 54 on the list. He catches some. I think that he's probably going to profile more as a corner infielder, probably a third baseman at the next level. He attends Alvin. Big time performer this summer. He hit 583 in 29 plate appearances and 5 tool events. Just everywhere the guy went this summer, he hit, and he showed some ability in games to impact the baseball, to drive it out of the yard. Didn't swing and miss very often. Good eye at the plate, good hand-eye coordination in the batter's box. He's a two-sport guy. He's a standout on the Alvin defense as well, which I love. It's fun to watch those guys on the defensive side. You put their tape on, you see them flying around, hitting people, and then you see them on the diamond mashing bombs. It's fun to watch Easton Winfield, and he comes in at number 54 on our list.
Yeah, like you said, two-sport guy. We didn't mention it when we were talking about him, but Tyne Hampshire is as well. We obviously have a big affinity for guys that play multiple sports. Easton fits that mold. I saw an interesting comp for him. I can't remember who said it, but they compared him to
did you see the Ken Caminiti comp?
Yeah. And it's like, man, you see those comparisons, and then you can kind of visualize it. But strong physical kid, lots of hard contact, all to all fields, got some pop in there for sure. I saw a bunch of post-game pictures of him with uniform all dirty, which I love, and just good player. Played for a couple of good teams. And love the physicality and the attitude that he probably takes with him when he's playing linebacker. Yeah,
it's fun to watch that guy play on the football field as well. Now, when I say Alvin, there might not be a single person that gets this that's listening to the podcast. When I say Alvin, who do you think of that we played with growing up? What was the guy's name that played for either the Cougars or the Red Sox from Alvin? The big guy that hit homers from the left side. I might be totally throwing us off, but the name's going to come to you eventually, because when I think of Alvin, I think of physical guys like Easton Winfield, because that's all I knew growing up.
Well, it's not over turf.
No, I don't think so.
No.
There's this guy that we played with growing up that he showed up and he was bigger than everybody, and he had a broken hand one tournament, still hitting homers. So every time I think of Alvin, I think of like big physical power hitting guys. And that's certainly what Easton Winfield
Well,
is.
yeah, Nolan Ryan, so big physical guys.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to have some power when you come from Alvin. And if you go to Lumberton, you got to hit the baseball, with lumber in the name. I mean, you got to swing the bat a little bit too. So, all right, I've totally thrown us off already, but we'll get back on track here at number 53 on the list. Hank Binney, an infielder from Lake Travis. I kind of plant my flag in the ground for this guy. I saw him up close a couple times this summer. He ended up slashing 434, 524, 585 across 63 plate appearances in 5-tool events. I really like the swing. It's balanced. It's athletic. It's quick. There's some bat speed there. Competitive guy that plays with a really slow heartbeat. I saw GPS Legends play in a game. It is a really testy, highly competitive game. Kind of some coaches were talking back and forth. Parents were talking back and forth. It kind of had that tense, anxious vibe around the game. And he just got in there like it was nothing. Just put the barrel on the ball every single time. Just put the ball in play, put the ball in play, put the ball in play. I really like the swing. I think this is a guy that's got a chance to be one of the better hitters from the right side in the class. If you talk to some people at Lake Travis, I think he's probably going to play third base for them this season. I think defensively, he probably profiles maybe a little bit more in the future as a second baseman, because I'm not sure how much power there's going to be in there. It's more gap to gap right now, but it is coming along. But he's been up to 87 miles an hour, I believe, off the mound. So I think that arm can play at the hot corner. But you watch this guy hit. He just hits over and over and over again. And sometimes I feel like we make this too hard. But if a guy hits, I mean, he's a hitter until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I think what you said exactly right on that is, you see him in a bunch of different settings, just hit the ball. The swing looks the same every time you see it. You can tell that he's confident and quiet in the box, spraying it all over the place. Going to be tested as far as competition goes, playing at another loaded Lake Travis team. He's going to have a bunch of guys around him in the lineup that can really hit. And obviously that we know what they've got with the arms with the 2022 crew. But yeah, just another in a long line. He's going to be playing with Caden Kent. I mean, kind of, it's a little bit of a similar game, kind of a second, third baseman type guy. But man, they're going to have some really mature approaches at the plate. You throw in a guy like Cole Johnson also. And it's going to be, I wouldn't want to hit against them or pitch against them.
No, I wouldn't either. That's going to be a group it's going to be tempting for me when the schedules come out to go watch them so much, because not just because it's close, but because they just have so many guys. They're going to have pitchers on this list that don't make the 55 that are like guys I really, really like. They just haven't thrown a ton of high school innings yet. Speaking of guys we like, obviously anybody on this list we like, but I know you saw this guy up close recently, Logan Myers. Infielder, outfielder from Arlington Martin, physical guy. I mean, he lists himself at 6'2", 195. He might be shortchanging himself a little bit. I mean, he's a big guy. And when he makes contact, man, it jumps. I mean, he's really showing some in-game power already. I think he's got a plus. He's got a plus raw power tool. He's getting into it in games, and he's not a guy that has to sell out to get to it. It's kind of that low effort type of power because the ball just really jumps off his bat. He plays some shortstop right now. I think that he's probably eventually at the next level, probably going to profile a little bit more as a third baseman, maybe more as a corner outfielder, but he does handle shortstop at the high school level. I mean, especially for a guy his size, he handles it fine, but really the bat is a standout thing. I mean, the ball just flies off his bat.
Yeah, everything about Logan is big. He has big features. It's loud. Like, he throws hard, has a lot of power, can't throw a fastball by him. From what I've seen and what I've heard talking to coaches. But you talk about his ability to play short. I'm not comparing him to this guy, but it kind of reminds me of the same. Josh Young, obviously, played short in high school, played some at Tech. I think Logan can play it. If you were in a pinch or depending upon where he goes, I think he could do it. But, like you said, the very end of the future for him, I think, you could see him being an elite outfielder, elite third baseman. You're going to want to get his bat in the lineup. He can hit. From all accounts, great teammate. Several guys that he's played with and played for that I talked to just rave about how he is as a player, wants to do everything that he can to help the team win, doesn't really care where he plays. And, as we know, that can be invaluable to a program, especially a college program. And it could get him on the field earlier than if he tried to play a specific position. I know kids limit themselves by thinking they're this or that, or really wanting to play one place. But man, if you go in there and show that you just want to get on the field, I mean, for us, Casey Clemens was that way. We recruited him as a pitcher. He was still rehabbing when he got to school, but he wanted to play, and he, fought his way into the lineup and was our everyday first baseman. So, I could see Logan being a kid like that, depending upon the roster, wherever he goes, he may not play right away where he's going to eventually end up, but he can do it. Like I said, I've seen him hit home runs to all fields. Like you said, he's got a cannon for an arm, and just good team guy, and guys that can do as much as he can on a baseball field typically end up being winning players.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the arm. I mean, we're talking about a guy that might have plus power and maybe a plus arm. Like, you don't have to be very good at a bunch of other things and still be a really, really good player. We got those sort of things working for you. And you mentioned a guy that's just willing to do anything to get on the field. His teammate at United Baseball Club, Mack Rose, comes in at number 51 on our list. I think Mack Rose exudes that as well or better than anybody in this class. He's a winning player. He just wants to get on the field and play. And he can play legitimately all over the diamond. He can catch. I've seen him up to 90 miles an hour on the mound. You can put him somewhere in the infield on the corners. You could put him in the outfield if you wanted to. And he just wants to play. He loves playing the game. He loves competing. He had a great summer. He was on our 5-tool all-summer team after hitting .431 with 5 homers. I think he's still got a lot of upside he can tap into on the mound, but just a guy that it seems like people want to be around on the baseball field from the mental side of things, and a guy that just wants to get out there and make winning plays however anybody needs him to.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any baseball cliche you can come up with, you can apply to Mack. Coach's son, can play all the positions, can hit, can pitch. I think the biggest question for Mack is where he ends up, because he's good at so many spots. He hasn't ever really focused on playing one position a lot. I mean, he can catch. I think if he got to catch every day and really devote his time to it, he'd be a really good catcher. He can play first base in his sleep. He can play the corner infield, corner outfield. You can tell he's a coach's son. He just always at the field, always in the cage, loves talking baseball, has a great encyclopedia of names. He's always aware of all the kids around him. Whenever he does finish playing baseball, he's going to be a coach. I know you get that feel from certain kids. And, obviously growing up in a family with a dad and that's a coach and an older brother that plays, you're around it all the time. And you can just tell the kid loves baseball. I mean, he's going to go to a program when he gets done playing at Rockwall and make some team really happy, because he's going to be able to fill a lot of roles for you.
Yeah.
And, great clubhouse guy, just gets the game, coach's dream. Obviously his dad's his coach, and he's been around a bunch of really good players that have played for his dad too. So that never hurts. Especially we talk about former big leaguers' sons, is pretty much the same thing, growing up in a clubhouse, in a dugout, and really having that is the only thing you really know. And, Mack's continuing to get better. I think he's going to tick up some in velocity this year. And curious to see where he ends up, because he's a very good player and has a good pedigree and a good program.
Yeah, it's easy to bet on guys like that grew up around the game like that and just have seen it at the high level for a long time, and then check that mental box as well. It's not going to surprise me when he has success in the future. Number 50 on our list is a guy that won the home run derby at the Pudge World Classic last summer. Davis Rivers, a catcher from Waller. He catches right now, and you know what, for a guy his size, I mean, big chested guy, he's pretty light on his feet. He moves pretty well behind there. He had a 1.97 in-game pop. We'll see if it can stick there at the next level. I think he's going to have a chance to, absolutely. But the bat is the standout. I mean, he could profile at first base just fine with the bat because it's big time. I think that he from the left side might be the best combination right now of in-game power and bat speed. And his ability to kind of get to that. I mean, he posted on Twitter recently, he went to an area code showcase event I believe in November, and with TrackMan data registered a 105 mile an hour exit velocity. I mean, that for a high school player is a huge number. And he was a good performer in our 5-tool events, and he committed to ACU in August. And shout out to those guys for getting in on him early and getting him locked up, because I think this is a really fantastic get for ACU, because this guy, you watch the way he rotates in the box when he swings, and just his bat speed that comes with there, the way the ball comes off the bat. He's got some special power potential in the batter's box.
Yeah, I know Craig Perry is going to be ecstatic to get this guy on campus. By all accounts, really good leader, really competitive, can really throw. Like you said, if he ends up catching, I think he serves a really important role just because of the way he handles his pitching. But like you said, he's probably going to be a middle of the lineup bat who, if you want to give him a day off, you can put him over at first and he can do it confidently.
Yeah.
So, just there's a lot of talent in there, a lot of bat speed, a lot of power, good player. It's funny. You just keep hearing all these same guys. You hear them talked about by the coaches, and, a lot of leadership ability, and it just kind of fires you up to hear that kind of stuff, because it means that these guys are paying attention, doing things the right way. And it just makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch guys like that and follow their careers.
Yeah. And I believe he was, first team all district at Tomball last year. And if you're a varsity player at Tomball as a sophomore, and putting up those kind of numbers, I mean, you've got to be a dude, because that's a program that consistently has a lot of really good veteran talent that comes through there. And speaking of left-handed guys that can drive it out of the yard, Boots Landry comes in at number 48 on the list. Great name, Boots Landry, fantastic name. First
all
baseman
name
from
team for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a first baseman from Friendswood, a recent commitment to Texas A&M. Definitely a bat first profile, but that's fine, because I think it profiles as a guy that could end up hitting in the middle of that Texas A&M order with that thump. He kind of reminds me of Will Furness from last year's class, kind of that profile, to where, like, hey, let's not try to dress this up as something that it isn't. Like, this guy is a masher from the left side. Like, that's what he does. And I think that's what Boots Landry is going to provide for Friendswood and eventually at Texas A&M.
Well, I think, they just had a similar player come off that same profile with Will Rizzo.
Good point.
And that guy mashed. And if you can mash and you play in the SEC, you have some value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, It's pretty simple. I mean, you have to be able to mash if you're going to be a first baseman, and he fits that mold. And like you said, there's no beating around the bush with it. It just is what it is. The guy can hit, and he can hit, and everyone else knows he can hit. So put him in the lineup and let him hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we've brought this up before, but with those new coaching staffs, it's always pretty telling when they go make a move on a guy once they get settled in, especially for that 23 class. And that's something they went out and did is to get Boots Landry and add him to their commitment list. So he comes in at number 48. Friendswood, man, it just seems like they got dudes up and down that entire roster. It's going to be a fun team to follow during this high school season. Number 47 on the list.
Dylan, we need to back up to 49. John Ewens.
Did I skip? Oh, I did skip 49. I'm sorry. John Ewens, right here on my list. From Bostonville.
Is that what you're going? Ewens?
I think so. Ewens. We know that I'm the person so I'm basically like the Bob Nightingale of name pronunciation. Like, just do the opposite of what I do. So
yeah, John, please tweet at us and let us know.
Yeah. Well, this is tough, man. Like, John, I should have just taken you off the list, because not only did I not know how to pronounce your name, but Bosqueville, like, am I doing that one right at least? Bosqueville.
I'm pretty sure that's what Mitch Thompson said whenever he was on our podcast, because that's Waco area.
Oh.
John, help us out here, bud.
Yeah, go ahead and tweet at me or DM me or whatever. I'm sure somebody will, but as you can tell, I haven't had enough coffee dealing with everything that's gone on in this household this week. But big time athlete, a guy that was a 2A player of the year for baseball this past season, but he's also a stand-up defensive back for his high school team. I believe one game he had 27 tackles like this season. Like, that's awesome. 27 tackles, hell of a performance. He threw a no-hitter in last year's playoffs, but I think he profiles more as an athletic outfielder hitting from the left side. There's a lot of projection remaining with this guy. We mentioned the athleticism. They're pretty active hands in the batter's box, but they work kind of those loose, quick, active hands. I think that he's going to be a guy that's gap to gap right now, but he's probably going to run into the ball some and drive it out of the yard as he matures and gets stronger. But a commitment to Baylor, committed to Baylor, I believe, back in January. But another guy I'm willing to bet on because, hey, like super productive, two-sport athlete, projects physically. I mean, there's a lot to like about this guy. We know the job that Baylor does and the type of athletes that they go out and get early on in the recruiting process.
Yeah, a guy I kind of thought about when I was going through his stuff was another former big left-handed Baylor outfielder, David Murphy. Big physical guy, athletic, kind of stands the same way in the box at times, but
yeah, kind of that crouch type look almost a little bit.
Yeah. And you see the athleticism, love this guy's not a two-sport guy, he's a three-sport guy, I think. And comes from a winning program, won some awards as player of the year. And, he's a guy that I could see just really taking off once he gets to Baylor, when he gets to work with Mike Taylor and those guys and just fit the mold of a guy that they're looking for, that just, he ends up being there 3 or 4 years and, he feels like he's been there forever because he's produced from an early standpoint in his career.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, this is a guy that I think that we might look up when he's a senior and just the way he's filled out and things like that. I mean, we might be looking at the bat like, whoa, like a guy that's got a real chance to go into Baylor. I'm gonna make some noise early on in his career. Number 47 on the list, because the Boots Landry was number 48 after I idiotically skipped 49. Number 47 on the list, Dylan Schlegel, an outfielder from Mansfield Legacy. I'm a fan of this guy. Like, there is a potential here for a power speed combination that you just don't really see often. I mean, those types of guys that can run like he can and also have that lean, strong athletic frame and can kind of drive the ball out of the yard on occasion as well. There's not many of those guys. And I've seen him as fast as 4.19 down the line. And that's when he basically chopped his feet at the end and kind of slowed up because the ball was in the outfield. Plays the game aggressively, plays it fast. I think his speed really translates on the bases and defensively. We'll see what the bat becomes. But man, there's a lot to like right now with that and the way it's playing in games. He's a guy that I think had some really bright moments this fall playing in some of our events. Plays for that Stick Scout team. That's got a bunch of guys that I really like in that 23 class. But Dylan Schlegel coming in at number 47 on the list because, I mean, this is a guy that's got a chance to be a plus runner and has a little bit of impact from the right side in the batter's box.
Yeah, the swing's not exactly the same, and that's a compliment to Dylan. But, just talking about him, he sounds a lot like Hunter Pence. Mm-hmm. Athletic, can run. He's a guy that, talking to several guys that have played with and against him, like he's good at everything on the field. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think he has a chance to be really successful. People like him. They talk about him highly, and he's just one of those names that kind of rattles off people's tongue when you ask him about good players in the area. And, I know people think highly of his work ethic and character. He's really active. You can see when he's on social media, he's always promoting teammates. So it's easy to see why guys think so highly of him. He's obviously a good player. Just in the middle of stuff, when he is involved, things just happen. Just kind of one of those guys. And he may not have that one, just standout tool, but he does everything well. Like I think you mentioned a player that he compares to is Carson Kleck in that 2022 mm-hmm. class, just does everything well. And you look up and you look at his numbers and you're like, man, wow, this guy had a great weekend or a great season. Yeah. And I think that's the kind of player that Dylan is. But again, he's really well liked by everyone that you ask about him. And that says a lot, because if you get guys off the record and they're, can say anything they want about someone, and it's always the same thing that you hear from everyone, you tend to be a consistent guy that your teammates can count on and programs can really be excited about.
Yeah. And I think I had to look at my notes, but I think I had Queck in the 4.2s down the line. And I mean, so that's a guy that really moves. And I think Schlegel even might be a tick faster than that. But I just love the guys that like are really good athletes who can run, and like they impact the game with that. Like they know like, hey, I can put the ball in play, and like I can use this to my advantage. Or like if I get something that might get into the gap, like I'm going to see if I can push this thing to 2. And it seems like that's the way he plays is like, I'm going to try to always be a part of the action, like you said, and put the ball in play and use those gifts that I have. But I think he's just now scratching the surface of what he could become as a hitter. And you parlay that with his athleticism and his running ability, you could have something that could be definitely one of the best outfielders in the state of Texas. Moving down the list to number 46, Derek Mitchell, an outfielder from John Paul II, switch hitting outfielder, a guy that's got really interesting tools across the board. I think that he's a guy that when it all clicks, he creates some flashes of brilliance that are as bright as anybody in the class. Because there's like, you watch him and he's like, yeah, he can run. Yeah, he's got some arm strength. Yeah, he's a good athlete. And you watch him in batting practice, it's like, whoa, like the swing from both sides. Like when it all clicks, man, it's something special. So I'll be curious to really follow his career. And he's a guy that if it starts clicking a lot more often, he's certainly be somebody that moves up on this list.
Yeah, Derek has tons of potential. Everything he does is loud, right? He makes really loud contact from both sides of the plate. Good athletes. I actually saw him last week, and he's put on about 20 pounds this offseason.
Wow.
And it is good weight, very good weight. So it'll be interesting to see how that translates to his play. I mean, he already had ridiculous pop, making the move from Prestonwood over to John Paul II, but can't wait to see that team play. As we'll see on our list, they're loaded. Derek has a lot of really good baseball in front of him. High character guy, coaches love him. So you know he has a reputation of being a really hard worker. So it'll be fun to see when it all ultimately does click. And it's not to say he hadn't been successful already,
right?
Because we've seen him be successful, but man,
I mean, Arizona State commitment, like this,
right, exactly. So when, like you said, when it does click and everything comes together at the same time and he's able to do it all consistently, I mean, you're talking about potentially a top 10 player in the state as far as talent goes.
Yeah, I sign off on that. Absolutely. The last guy we'll wrap up with today on this inaugural 5-tool 55 for the 2023 class in the state of Texas is a left-handed pitcher from Hallsville, Landon Bowden, committed to TCU. This guy, to me, profiles as a big-time strike thrower, can already execute his stuff. He's got some pitchability, a 3-pitch mix, kind of that lower 3/4 type slot on the mound. Looks great physically, and kind of a higher waisted guy, athlete. He's still got some projections remaining there, kind of some of that lean strength already through the lower half. He's one of those guys that can already kind of mess with hitters' timing just by kind of tweaking some things in his delivery. And you can't do that unless you're a good athlete on the mound, which is what he is. Performed at a really high level for 5-star performance, performed at a high level for his high school program. The velocity right now is around in the mid 80s, but I think there's going to be a lot more to come. And even if this is a guy that just is comfortably in the upper 80s and can bump 90, 91, 92 on occasion as he matures, I think he's going to be one of the best left-handed pitchers in the state because he competes, he throws strikes, and he knows how to execute his stuff. And when you can do those things, especially from the left side, you've got a chance to be a really good arm in the state.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me a little bit of left-handed pitcher Tyler Alexander from TCU. The strike thrower, good stuff plays above what the actual radar gun tells you. Like you said, if he sees that velocity jump, which is really easy to envision, I mean, you're talking about another guy too that can be pretty high on this list. But
yeah,
just love the idea that he knows how to pitch, move the ball around, and if the velocity does come, then I mean, look out. He's going to be a guy that pitches early at TCU, and assuming he makes it to TCU, basically.
Right. Yeah. You start talking about these guys that can actually execute their stuff from the left side. And those are guys that typically get scouted very, very heavily compared to some of those other position groups because there's just not many of those guys. And he has great hair, fantastic hair.
Yeah.
Let's not lie. I'm sure that probably helps the fastball play up a tick as well on the mound. So shout out to Landon Bowden coming in at number 45 in the list, left-handed pitcher from Hallsville and a TCU commitment. But that gets us through the first 11 guys on the list. Again, like I said previously, it was really hard with this group. I felt like with the other groups was kind of just more positioning guys because there's kind of some more clear tiers. Those guys we'll get into with more podcasts and more published work on Five Tool. But with these guys, I mean, the last 5 or 6 slots, there were so many really, really good players. But we're talking about some pretty loud tools here for juniors, whether it's guys that can already hit the ball out of the yard, guys that can really, really run, guys that can throw strikes, guys that can throw hard. I mean, I think it speaks highly of this class that we have some guys in this list that are, some big time power guys or some big time pitchers. And they're at the very end of the 55, which I always reiterate to people when they see this, like if you're number 55 on this list, you're undoubtedly one of the best players in the nation. Like undoubtedly, like you're basically like a top 250 player naturally,
I mean, Arkansas doesn't take guys that aren't very good.
Right.
And I mean, but like you said, it's exciting because some of these guys that we talked about today have attributes and some skill to where, we could look up on this list at this time next year and they're way up that list. Mm-hmm. A guy like Derek Mitchell, like you talked about, has tools that, most people don't have. And if it clicks and he continues to develop, like it seems that he will, just because of the sheer work ethic, I mean, it's going to be what's exciting about this.
Yeah. And it's funny getting on these guys early. I feel like both of us starting with Five Tool in, July, kind of playing catch up with the 22s. And, it's good kind of heading into a high school season. It's like, oh man, we got 2 more high school seasons with these guys, and how much things are going to change and how exciting it's going to be the fall's development. And I think this group's a good representation too, that like, if you produce like that matters, that matters. Like it sticks out. It's going to be something that we recognize. It's going to be something that colleges recognize as well. Like if you're killing the ball everywhere you go, like people are going to take notice of that. And there's some guys in this list that's what they did, and they're being rewarded for that. And if they continue to do it, they'll stay on the list and continue to be rewarded for that sort of thing. But a good list to start with. I think a good representation of what this list is going to be like overall. Just guys that can, a lot of two-way guys, a lot of multi-sport athletes, a lot of guys that are athletic with some projection remaining, and some really, really interesting players in this class.
Let me ask you a 2-part question related to these 11 guys. If I asked you, who would be your pick to be an All-American in college? And if there was somebody on that list that I made you pick that would have to be, or that would make it to the big leagues, would that be the same person?
That's a good question. Probably not. Because if I'm going the All-American route, I'm tempted to go Davis Rivers just because I think he's got a chance to go to ACU and just put up some stupid numbers. And that's going to get hit. That would get All-American type recognition. But man, I look at Landon Bowden and the way he pitches and the way the arm works and things like that. And when you see guys from the left side that can execute like that, it's a pretty good bet that guys like that have a better than usual shot than maybe some of their peers that make in the big leagues. But no, I don't think it would be the same guy. What about you?
I think you might have the same answer. I think, if you made me pick a guy that could like get to the big leagues and stick in this group, I think I might say Logan Myers.
Yeah, I could see that, man. The way the power plays, that's in-game power.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the ability to hit for a lot of power, play a bunch of different positions, and it's just, he's physical, man. Like the ball jumps off the bat, like you talked about when we were talking about, I think it was Boots that we were talking about having 100 plus mile an hour exit velocity.
It was Davis Rivers.
Oh, it was Davis. Okay. Well, I've seen several from Logan also. And I mean, that's scary when you think about how old these guys are.
Yeah. He had 100 at one of our events, one of our showcase events in the summer. He had 100-mile-an-hour exit velocity, which is, I mean, that doesn't happen often for seniors in the state of Texas. I mean, Jason Jones, the guy we talk about a lot with the 22 class, I think he's kind of the poster child for exit velocity and things like that. And I think, he's in probably the 104 type range or something like that. Like anything, if you get to 100, that's a monstrous number. But no, I appreciate Logan Myers because he's a big physical guy that it plays that way. Sometimes you see those big physical guys and it doesn't play that way on the field.
I mean, there's athleticism because a guy of his size that can play shortstop and do it better than adequately. Yeah. That tells you there's some athleticism there. Mm-hmm. So, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up on body wise. Is he going to get taller? Is he going to get bigger? What's it going to be like? But, good athlete, solid runner. But then you look at a guy there's a bunch of these guys that I could see potentially just putting up really, really, and some of it will depend upon where these guys go. Cause we've got a handful of them that are uncommitted. So that, you could see some of these guys that aren't committed going to a place maybe with a small ballpark and putting up just crazy numbers.
Yeah. But who's going to Tech, or who's going out to New Mexico and playing out there. Or Oklahoma State, or I guess their new park might play a little bit bigger than the old one, but
it did when we were up there. But
in Easton Winfield, if he ends up at a program where it's a very hitter friendly environment, the way that guy's performing right now and how physical and strong he is, he could put up some monster numbers. But yeah, I feel pretty good about Davis Rivers going to ACU and just and putting up some numbers.
Well, like I said, I know that Craig Perry is probably salivating about getting that guy on campus and in the middle of their lineup from day one. I can't imagine that he's not. So
I wish we could have seen his home run derby performance in person because he hit a ton. And that's a test of, it's more of a test of endurance than it is strength. Can you keep getting your swing off in a way over and over and over again to hit the ball out of the park? That's, hitting a home run period at that age is not easy. And to do it over and over and over again, you've got to be a pretty well-conditioned athlete to pull that sort of thing off. So he's a super fun guy to watch. I can't wait to see the kind of season that he has for sure. And, we talk about ACU, man, they do a good job of evaluating guys and making moves. And I'll be curious to see when these guys start playing again, how many of these guys somebody makes a move on, like a Dylan Schlegel. When you're running that type of line, that type of time down the line, and you're putting the ball in play like he was this fall. I mean, college programs like athletes that can hit a little bit too.
One of my high school teammates played he was a year older than me and played at UTA for his first 2 years of college. So his freshman year, I would go watch him play, and that's when Hunter Pence was on that team. So that's what kind of made me use that comparison. But man, I felt like, I know this isn't possible, but I pretty much went to every single home Sunday game that UTA played back in. It would have been the spring of 04. Yeah, spring of 04. I'm not joking. I think Hunter Pence hit 2 home runs every game I was at. and that place is a graveyard too. So that's crazy. But I mean, like I said, not necessarily direct comparisons with the unorthodox swing or anything, but just the kind of athlete and the way he plays the game. I saw some similarities there, but yeah, it's going to be let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Five of the 11 that we talk about today aren't committed. And those guys have a chance to really just blow up this junior year and be wanted across the board by almost everybody. So that's the kind of talent we're talking about in the state. And it's exciting. And, I'm excited for the first time in my career to ever be minus a couple random times when we were down a coach, but to be able to consistently go out and watch high school baseball games. I'm excited for that. Just, and I don't mean necessarily summer games, but getting to see them play in games that, are a lot of high stakes playoff games, that kind of environment. I love that. Just seeing how guys play when there's a lot on the line and playing for pride of their town and their school and all that. So I mean, I know, like I said, I'm going to see Mack play probably a ton just because he's right down the street.
Yeah.
And they're going to be a good team, and they're going to be playing a good schedule full of guys that are on our list. So it'll be fun to get eyes on those guys a lot. And really, that's one of those things that Mack might get penalized at some point because we see him so much,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
It's just,
wait, you didn't get a hit this game. What's wrong with you? Like, well, you saw me 14 times. Like, I'm sure that Heath and Rockwell game will be like standing room only type of game this season.
Yeah, the traffic in town is going to be backed up. It's the only thing I can compare it to is when Chick-fil-A came to Rockwall back when I was in high school and just shut down traffic across town for I mean, they couldn't play the playoffs at home this past year because of it. They played a 3-game series at DBU and packed the place.
Wow. I believe it, man. I believe, like you, like I've never been able to have a high school season. Football I have, but baseball to where like I get to go like enjoy that environment a lot. Like I've gone to every so often gone to a game, when I was helping the Dodgers and Pirates, I go get some eyes on some guys in Central Texas that they needed a little extra help with. But I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm especially looking forward to going to one game and watching one game. The summer is really fun, but it reaches a point where it's like, oh my gosh, there's 6 games going at all times. Like it can be a lot. Like, and if you're not organized, your head can kind of spin a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to, especially now that we have 2 lists that are going to be done before the high school season. Like we should certainly know the juniors and seniors.
We're going to see all 110 of these guys. That's our goal. We're going to see all 110 of these guys.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, send us your schedule.
Please.
We'll try to get it out. We're in the planning phase.
Yeah, my DMs are open. Please send me schedules. I guess I never realized like those are actually kind of a pain to get. Just talking with some scouts, like, oh yeah, I'll trade schedules with you. I was like, wait, that's a thing. Like you guys just don't have easy access to these. But yeah, please send us your schedules because that is a goal of ours. Is to see every single guy on this list, and we'll be able to knock out a bunch of them through the tournaments and just seeing teams play teams in district and stuff.
Are you going to be able to handle more than one game in these tournaments?
Yes, because it's just one time slot at a time. Like for the most part, like I pick my time and I'm sitting on that game and I'm going to know everybody at that game by the time it comes out of there for sure. So no bouncing around and no 100-degree weather until playoffs start or whatever. But it's kind of stunning to look at some of these high school names and you see them over and over and over. It's like, how many dudes do you have that go to these same, like there, we'll get to a couple catchers on this list that one of them like transferred from the school to another local school. And it's like, I can't blame you because how are you both going to catch at the same school? Because you guys are both extremely good. Like, can't fault you at all. Like wanting to
it's like the quarterback thing. It's the quarterback thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, look, man, you got to know when you got to get your reps and your game reps and play the game and stuff like that. So I totally get it, but it's a super fun list. And I feel like we stuck our neck out a little bit today on some guys, but I'm totally confident in that. And I'm excited to see how these guys play this junior season and then what they become by the time their seniors high school careers are over. And then kind of looking ahead to what we'll get into on Thursday. So Thursday we'll have actually 22 guys because I'm releasing the next 11 tomorrow and then the next 11 that next day. And then we're going to hit the pause button because nobody likes to read anything on Friday and Saturday. And then we'll start back up again with Sunday. And then as we work to the final 11 guys on that following Monday, and then there'll be the just missed list and then the follow list as well. But definitely looking forward to, I think one of our favorites in the class will be coming up on this next 11 group here as we kind of work into a lot more of the pitching and middle infielder type guys with this next part. So I think it's a good place to end today. We've talked long enough. I've screwed up enough today on the podcast, but
John, tell us how to say your
John,
name and where you're
please tell us. I hope you listen. Tell us how to pronounce, or tell me how to pronounce your last name correctly.
Wait,
and also
you
your
said,
high school name.
you said Yowens.
I said
you
every single way you could possibly pronounce
Right.
it. So I'm covering all my bases. Yowens.
I got Ewens, you got Yowens. Hopefully
I've got
one
Yowens.
of us is
okay,
right.
you're claiming
Yeah.
the Ewens. I'm claiming the Yowens, which means I'm probably going to be on the wrong end of that debate. But yeah, John, please know we like your hitting. We like your name too. I just might be screwing it up right now, so please correct us on that. But let's hope for the next edition of the podcast to be fewer screw ups. And let's hope that everybody in my house is done throwing up for the next, hopefully 6 or 7 months or something like that. But until we talk to y'all next time, find us on Apple Podcasts, Twitter at Dustin McComas, at Drew H. Bishop, all the 5-tool accounts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. The podcast is on Podbean, Apple Podcasts. We put these things on YouTube as well. I know I need to shave. I know, but it's a face for radio right now. The important thing is that this list is done and it's getting published. And until we talk to y'all next time, take care.